Well, damn. And if you've seen this episode of Welcome to Derry, then if you're saying anything other than, well, damn, or shit, probably emotionless. But this episode of Welcome to Derry, episode 7, The Black Spot, stops all the hinting and it actually shows us why the town itself is the real monster in this story. Although our dancing friend does do his thing and has a lot of fun, may I add. Um, the town is the real monster in this season, clearly. All that aside, this episode gives us Pennywise and it shows us the Bob Gray version of Pennywise, and it shows us how it stole him and took on the Pennywise persona. And then it drops us into the Black Spot Massacre, and man, what a massacre it is, or was, however you want to look at it. This is probably one of the most horrific and just crazy but from the production side, well shot scenes that I've probably ever seen. Like, this episode alone could probably compete for like episode of the year with any show that came out this year. This was a great episode. Annie Muschietti, who also showed herself in this episode, the director, the creator of the show, and who directed this episode. Awesome job. Awesome job. Awesome job. But we're breaking down Pennywise, the fire, a certain character's fate, Dick opening the door of the dead, and that final moment that sets up something very, very crazy. And we're going to get into all of it. But before we do, I'm going to give you guys a little non-spoiler review of what the episode was, and then we'll jump into the rest later. This hour was a great hour. Fantastic. It basically takes us through two timelines. It starts us in 1908 with Bob Gray, aka Pennywise, and it shows us him as a sad clown, a guy that has lost his wife and is taking care of his beloved daughter. And it shows us basically how he becomes Pennywise, the one that is taken over by it. Then it picks up with the scenes from last week where we're at the Black Spot with the white vigilante, and they are going to confront the black soldiers and their guests at the Black Spot. And there's going to be a lot of chaos, and chaos will ensue, and it's going to be graphic, it's going to be intense, and it is a great scene for all the wrong reasons, but it is a great scene nonetheless. And by the end of the episode, we're going to see where Dick Shine has basically opened all the way up, and now he's seeing the dead things everywhere all the time. You know, this may explain why he goes to a hotel in the Colorado Rockies and just tucks himself away. But he does go back, he does leave there from time to time. So I don't know. After this episode, who scared you the most? Was it Pennywise or was it the town of Derry? So that's it for the non-spoiler section of the episode. I'm going to be getting into spoilers now, so this is your warning. But like I said, I'm going to just touch on some of the most important pieces of this episode. And in this episode, almost every piece is important, but they're not that many scenes, but all the scenes carry a different type of weight. But with that being said, 1908, we meet Bob Gray, who is regular person, not the it version of the Pennywise. It version of the Pennywise. We meet Bob Gray. He is a regular guy, just a regular sad guy with a daughter who lost his wife, and he works for a carnival, a traveling carnival. Apparently, he used to work for the circus, but he doesn't anymore. This is his way to give back to society in a way. He enjoys making kids laugh, and he's a clown, so he enjoys kids. Long story short, we get into the Bob Gray story, and we see something standing off in the background staring at him while he's putting on a performance to the kids. And at one moment, I thought maybe he hated kids because the kids jumped on the stage, ripped his hair off and all that stuff like that. But doesn't seem like that bothered him. He seemed to enjoy that the kids had a good time, although he tends to drink and smoke a lot. So maybe he doesn't enjoy kids all that much. But we see this kid named Oliver that walks up to him from the woods, telling him that he's looking for his parents. But he also tells him that he notices that he attracts kids. And, then we hear a woman screaming off in the background, and they go check it out. Then we come back later in the scene, and the people who run the carnival come up with a bloody handkerchief that Bob had, and told his daughter that, we found this in the woods, something pulled him off into the woods. So that is the creation of the It version of Pennywise. And they don't show us all of that. And I'm sure that's probably going to come in a later season, probably season 3, which is supposed to be 1908. So we'll probably flesh all of that out then. But did seeing the real Bob Gray make Pennywise seem sadder, or is it just another version of the one that we were all afraid of? So from there, like I said, we are dropped into the black spot immediately where we left off last week. Clint Bowers and the former chief of police, Clint Bowers, and the white vigilantes, they storm into the black spot with their mask on, and they demand Hank and, everybody can go back to having a good time. Obviously, that's not going to happen, and they walk out all calmly like they're not going to do anything. And of course, they chain the door shut. They chain the door shut and they start throwing cocktails at the building, setting the building on fire. This basically sends everything into chaos. And this is where the meat and potatoes of the episode really are. It is a graphic scene with bullets flying through the windows, glass breaking, fire, people catching on fire. They can't escape. I could see how this scene could be difficult to watch for some because it's probably reminiscent of a 1962 lynching, and maybe not your usual thing for the North, but definitely in the South. So it does carry some weight, some historical significance, but crazy scene, but crazy scene. And to touch on what actually happens in the scene, the kids are split up. Dick is there. He's trying to help save the kids. Hank is there. He's trying to keep everybody together. They do eventually get out with the help of a native woman, the spirit of a native woman that only Dick could see. And she shows them the way out behind an ice box on the floor, which leads them outside. Most of our main characters get away. And this is probably the most emotional, very, very sad. Rich was a great character in this show, and his passing probably carries a lot of emotional weight for the characters. It's crazy that this comes in episode 7 right before the end, but that scene where Rich is laying on top of the ice box after he pushes Marge in and he tricks her, basically thinking that they could both fit in there, but only one of them could. Very unselfish, and he loved the girl, and he told her this beautiful story about the first time they met. They had a moment, and ultimately Rich passes, and it sucks. Crazy scene. Damn, R.I.P. Rich. Now that was the sad part of the scene. The crazy part of the scene was the Pennywise of it. He shows up dancing in the fire, laughing, reaches his hand out to a woman, take my hand. And, you know, Ronnie runs into the room and she sees him while he's having a great old snack on this woman's face. And he turns to her and I can't even remember, like, Pennywise has some great punchlines in this episode. He has some one-liners and some just classic lines that he rattled off in this episode. He was hilarious. But all in all, Ronnie gets out along with Marge. But all in all, Ronnie gets out, Marge gets out, Will gets out, along with Hank and Dick. And probably a few others that aren't important to the storyline, but those are the main characters that make it out of the black spot. Is it me, or is it that the show maybe kind of implies that Rich's soul is one of the dead souls that Dick could kind of tap into? We'll get into the other part later. So now, after the black spot scene, we are outside and, all of the vigilantes had left except for the butcher. And we see Periwinkle, of all people, walking out of a woods. She comes out and she greets her husband, the butcher, and, he recognizes her and tells her to take off that ridiculous makeup because she does look like a fool in this makeup. Quite honestly, she looks terrible. And right behind her husband is her papa. Hi, papa. And, the butcher turns around and Pennywise standing there with a grin on his face, just big and wide, and he slices the butcher head in half. And it was hilarious because she truly thought that, who cares? She truly thought that was really her dad. And it didn't take her long to realize that that wasn't her dad. And then when Pennywise revealed to her that, yeah, I ate your father, he hit her with the deadlights, and we all know that basically now she's mentally broken, and she looked a little physically broken on that stretcher as well. It was hilarious, but then she kind of glares over at the kids with this weird look. on her way getting stretchered into the ambulance the next day. But that was crazy. But I mean, at least she got to see her father again. And, at least she's one of the few people that have gotten to see the deadlights. And now she kind of has to live with that horror, which, kind of explains why she's crazy and out of her mind in It Chapter 2 and why she is the way she is. That was a good tie-in to that movie because now we know how she got broken. She got broken by her own father. At this point, do you feel any sympathy for Ingrid? Because I feel absolutely no sympathy for Ingrid. She got exactly what was coming to her. Like, you were feeding kids to it, and you thought that this was a good idea at any point just because you wanted to see your good old daddy. Like, okay, but the next day, this is classic government style. The cover up is on. The official reports of what happened at the black spot as far as the fire is chalked up as basically an electrical fire. They tell us that Hank is dead, even though we know he's not. Um, they paint the butcher as a hero, even though we know he's not. And they basically tie a neat little bow on top of this, and you know, Derry is just moving on like a peaceful town, like a massacre didn't just take place the night before and a bunch of people just died. I think they said it was like 17 that died in the fire, which I mean, I guess they wouldn't care because this is 1962 and these people would be black, so they may not care. Just stating historical fact. That's all. But isn't that kind of disturbing? Like, what's scarier? The massacre that took place the night before or the cover up the day after and everybody just basically pretend like nothing happened just a few hours ago? Because I'm sure this didn't happen at like 8 o'clock at night. I'm sure this happened at like the wee hours of the night. And, everybody the next day is just like, oh, electrical fire, whatever. But this episode ends right when you think this episode is tying up everything and it almost seemed like a finale episode the way it was going for a second. And then bam, it hits us with something else. Broken in the forest, seeing the dead people. Leroy comes and talks to him, trying to help him out. And then the captain comes over and basically tells him, hey, we need to get back to base and explain to Shaw that, all these dead people out here, we don't have anything. The cycle is over. Oh, yeah, because Pennywise did say that, he's done now and he's about to go to sleep. So, he just ate a big meal and now he's about to take his ass to sleep. But Dick, to basically save all their asses in a way, and he ends up not really saving their asses. Oh, I could find a pillar. She could show us. And he sees the native woman again in her spirit form that only he could see. And it leads us to this field where they start excavating the field looking for what we see in a turtle shell of all things. We see the broken thing from whatever it came to the planet on inside of a turtle shell buried in the ground. Now, if this isn't a direct shout out to Mattern, then I don't know what is. And this is where the mystery kind of gets a little confusing. Without telling anybody, Leroy thinking they're just about to go, you know, put this up somewhere. No, they have a different plan because this is the military by all means. We have to run a test on this. And then we get back to the base, and long story short with that, General Shaw thinks that this is a great idea, and even his racism and sexism and everything ism starts to show. This was never about Russia. This was about the women's movement, the civil rights movement, and all the crazy things that are going on in this country that I don't recognize anymore. Boo hoo, boo hoo. And now he just wants to set it free everywhere because he puts the pillar in an incinerator. So this ain't to plant it in the ground or make a perimeter. This is to destroy it and basically set Pennywise free. And set him free he does. And that's basically how the episode ends because we get a nice little shot of Pennywise enjoying his sleep, realizing that one of my doorways have opened because they incinerated the pillar at the end of the episode. This is going to be a terrible idea because if you've seen the episode 8 trailer by now, then you know that this sets off a chain reaction of mist or fog spreading through the town, and Pennywise is going to get free, and he is going to imagine what he's going to do free on the entire town. And that's just with one pillar. So imagine if they did incinerate all of them. This is going to be a crazy episode, episode 8. And I apologize if I've just ruined the end of the episode or ruined the preview for episode 8, but you'll see a trailer. And if you haven't, you will. But wait, the episode isn't over yet. We go back to the Hanlon's house, and, after a conversation with his mom that just left with Hank, Will is at the house by himself. The phone rings, and we think it's Ronnie on the phone, but guess what? It's Pennywise talking to Will. But damn, we thought he was asleep. But I guess the kids didn't really know he was asleep or that the cycle was over. But he answers the phone. Pennywise is standing on the fridge behind him. He jumps down right on Will's face and hits him with the dead lights. And that's when the episode basically ends. Will is What is going to happen to Will? Because in It Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, he's not portrayed as this broken person. So I'm thinking at the beginning of episode 8, somebody's probably going to interrupt this. Probably his dad, Leroy. I can see Leroy may be dying now because he's pissed the military off. They don't want him to leave the base. They obviously want to kill him. And now his son is being attacked by Pennywise. And, maybe somebody comes home, like something's going to happen. I guess maybe the kids could come with the pillar that Lily has. So maybe that happens and he gets free. We know he's not going to die. So knowing that he's not going to die, it just raises a lot of questions about what's going to happen to him. And that's good because we don't know what's going to happen going into the next episode now. All we know is that Will is in the deadlights. But this town is the monster in the end. Charlotte said it best. And, Pennywise is horrific. The black spot basically proves that the people are more willing to do crazy stuff when they think they have a purpose or a cause, and a misrepresented one, may I add. The flashbacks of Bob Gray and seeing him as Bob Gray and not Pennywise is honestly great. And to get more backstory to Pennywise and into one of our favorite characters is always going to be fun. And the way that they're delivering it, making him human, like actually humanizing him, it does kind of make you sad for him because, like, even though it's not him and it's really a thing, it doesn't, the only thing it can really make you do is feel bad for the person that got ate in the woods in 1908 who's no longer here. But the saddest thing is Rich dying. Rich was the man. Rich was great. I'm glad Rich had his big scene in the last episode with the drums. I guess that was his big shebang because, his character is no longer with us. And I'm sure this is going to play a part going into the next episode because Pennywise did not fail to mention to Will right before he put him in the deadlights and showed him his true form that, he could smell the weakness of the kids, basically. And he could smell the brokenness. And, that's what he preys on. And now he's going to have a whole town to feast on because this next episode, he's clearly going to get unleashed on a town in the fog. And this is probably going to be our murderous rampage by none other than Pennywise that we've been waiting for. And I'm excited for it. December 14th, next Sunday, it'll be great. I am going to drop a reaction video immediately following that episode. It's sad that this is almost over, even though we're going to get multiple seasons, but they're going backwards. So it's not like we're going to go into It Chapter 1 or something after this. I am wondering, though, if any of this is going to turn into a spinoff into a different Stephen King universe show. Maybe they turn The Mist into a TV show. And that would be interesting to explore, especially since it seems like we're going to get some Mist in this episode. I'm not sure what year the Mist book film takes place in. I don't think it's 1962, but maybe they can retroactively spin that back and do it over, and who knows, they can connect this in any type of way. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I hope that this begins an expansion into the Stephen King universe because this would be like really fun. Marvel is fun for those who like it, but this is better in my opinion. And with that being said, that is it. Thank you for coming. Thank you for tuning in. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. I appreciate you all for coming, and I will see you next time. And I have a review of Troll 2 over on Netflix coming, so stay tuned for that, and I will see you next time. Bye.